50, and we will go 1/2 hour. And we'll have 2 minutes per question and 2 minutes to open for each candidate. So, Lee Pinkeson, would you like to introduce yourself to everyone?
Well, thank y'all very much for staying here. I know that your lives are busy and you got a lot to do, but coming out here to hear what we have to say means an awful lot to the candidates, and we can't tell you thank you enough. I'm Lee Pinkeson. I'm currently one of your county commissioners. I've had the good fortune of being one for 12 years, and I can't tell you all thank you enough for all the support. I am running for re-election. I was fortunate enough to pass the first test, and I owe the area around Archer wholehearted thank you, because y'all were kind enough to support me in my bid to get re-elected. I was born and raised in Alachua County, went to schools here, graduated from the University of Florida. I'm married. I have 3 children. I had a business, optical laboratory, and worked with Dr. Ozuri, and I see some people in the audience that I helped in that. And in 2000, I've always tried to do something in the community to try to pay back the community for what I feel is I've had a very good life, and I think that we need to pay back. And did a number of things for a long time, and then around 2000, I thought that maybe I could do something on a larger level. So I ran for the county commissioner and was fortunate enough to win. My message then is essentially the same message that I had back then, and I think that every person in Alachua County deserves a chance to be successful. And that's, it's easy to say, and there's a lot to it. Number one, we have to have economic opportunities. We're fortunate to have the University of Florida in Santa Fe here, but the job opportunities there are limited. So we need to see if we can do something for people that don't necessarily have a master's or a PH degree. I think that our children need to be ready when they start school. I think, and I'm sure we'll have a number of questions, so we need to do what we can to preserve and protect our water. And of course, we need to address our infrastructure, and hopefully we have some conversation about that. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Mr. Martin, please.
Well, thank you. My name is John Martin, and I'm running for Alachua County Commission District 4. Of course, the vote itself is county-wide, and it's the seat that currently is occupied by Susan Baird. She decided not to run for re-election, and I'm seeking that seat, and Mr. Cornell and I will face off in November. I'm sure he wants your vote. I know I do. I hope to earn your support, but if you think about it, I've always been with you, the League of Cities. I appreciate the League of Cities locally sponsoring this and the support that is shown from the state level. I used to be very involved in that aspect as well. Currently, I represent all of you for the League members on the Citizens Oversight Committee for Wild Spaces, Public Places. I also serve on the county's Rural Concerns Committee. So if you look at what the cities have chosen, whenever they've chosen someone to represent all of them, they've pretty consistently chosen John Martin. I was the first rural advisor. I know Gibb, the mayor of Alachua, is now holding that position, and I wish you all the best, Gibb, for that position. But I was the first rural advisor on the Metropolitan Transportation Organization, where I had the privilege of serving with Mr. Pinkeson. And I can tell you, if you go back and ask some of the Archer City commissioners, for instance, that served at the time, of course, the late Roberta Hodges, you can't ask her. I really appreciated her. But I fought tirelessly trying to overcome many obstacles to get the road 4-laned out here, because Archer's like the only major city. I know La Crosse also has a 2-lane that doesn't have a 4-lane highway running into it. That is something that needs to be remedied, and that's something that someone from a small city like Hawthorne absolutely understands the necessity of that. I was sad to hear that your local bank is closing, so you're only going to have an ATM machine. Archer, for instance, I know we're here in Archer, have suffered many, many types of closures like that, and economic development is something that they need. You need here throughout the county. I have a long, strong history in this. As a matter of fact, the last time I was here, one of the people told me that my dad refereed games here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Cornell.
Thank you to the League of Cities and for all of you for staying tonight. My name is Ken Cornell. I'm running for County Commission. I'm running because I believe it's important that we foster job creation, that we invest in our kids in our neighborhoods, and that we continue to protect our public health and our natural resources. I was born and raised in Alachua County. I'm a product of the public schools. I have my master's degree from the University of Florida. I've been a small business owner for the last 18 consecutive years. I'm a certified public accountant. I've been married 24 years, and I have 2 boys, 19 and 21, and I love Alachua County. In Alachua County, we know that the job creators of the future are going to be centered around university and college towns and small communities like Archer, and that our policies and our culture should provide a bridge to real job creation at every level. In Alachua County, we know that a strong public education and programs both before and after school should provide the ability for kids to get out of the cycle of both poverty and prison. In Alachua County, we know that a strong and healthy natural environment and that clean water is the foundation of not only our economy, but also our community. Now, financial interests are playing a bigger and bigger role to try to influence your vote. And especially in this local election, they're trying to convince you to vote for a particular person. We recognized that early, and we made a pledge that we were not going to allow any corporate or special interests to play a role in our campaign. And we have decided that we are only accepting contributions from individuals because we believe that the power of the vote should reside with each of you, the people. I'm asking for your vote on November 4th. I'm looking forward to the questions tonight and to discussing with these two fine gentlemen issues that are important to you. So thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll get right into it here, and we have some controversial issues that we'd like for you to address, and we'll start with you, Lee, I guess, since you asked for it. You wanted to know if we would discuss the road tax, and that is the first question for you. That is about the controversy about how to fix these roads.
Well, on November 4th, you'll have the opportunity to vote whether or not you support the infrastructure sales tax for Alachua County. And the reason that's necessary is, number one, we have been responsible for the roads, and over the years, we started out with around 400 and something miles of roads. And I know a couple of the representatives are here, but back in the late 80s, the state, and they weren't responsible, they weren't there. Back in the late 80s, the state was kind enough to give the counties about an additional 200 miles to take care of with an inadequate funding source. So over the years, the county hadn't put enough money in. Then we got the additional burden of maintaining the 236s, the 235s, and those types of roads. So fast forward, quite frankly, we've got about a $380 million backlog. We've got to do something to address it. There is not enough money in the budget to take care of it because it would take the equivalent of about $15 million a year to take care of the shortfall. That equates, if we don't have a sales tax, the benefit of the sales tax is that about anywhere from 25 to 30% of the tax comes from people outside the area, visiting the area, who do use our roads. And it doesn't go totally on the burden the people who own property or those that rent. We have an opportunity to get about 1.3%, 130% on the dollar by the sales tax, which is a great thing. It'll help address it will not take care of the problem. We still have an issue as far as ultimately to get to the $380 million mark, but this will be a nice chunk of change. It will do wonders for the area. And the great thing is that pretty much everybody is all the municipalities are on board. The city of Gainesville is on board. And we're kind of all heading in the right direction, or the direction to take care of this issue. So hopefully going forward, we'll be successful on November the 4th.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's go over to the end, and Ken Cornell, let's have your thoughts on that, please.
So maintaining our road infrastructure is a core service of government, and we've got to fund our core services. This seems like a reasonable approach to ask the voters for permission and support to fund this backlog. It also seems reasonable to have a oversight board which would monitor every dollar spent, and it also seems reasonable that 30% of the tax would be funded by visitors that are using our roads. Now, this has been tried before. We've been down this road 2 times that I know of, and it's failed miserably because the voters have said no. The difference between those proposals and this one is this seems to be a more comprehensive approach. It seems to be supported by all of the municipalities, all of the county commissioners, and the Chamber of Commerce. Democrats are supporting this. Republicans are supporting this. Even the Republican whose seat we're seeking to fill, Commissioner Baird, is supporting this tax. If it doesn't pass, we've got to fund core services. Maintaining our roads is a core service. And so then we have some hard choices to make, but we've got to fund that out of the general fund. Will we be able to do that to make up for $380 million? Probably not. We will need a commission that can work with the citizens who have said no now 3 times, if they say no again, to come up with something that we can all agree to.
Thank you very much. You actually had 35 seconds left if you wanted it. John?
Do we probably need more money for roads? Is the pothole that has been created in Alachua County too deep to fill with existing revenue? The answer to that's most likely yes. It's probably too deep. Is the tax going to pass? I don't think so. It hasn't passed before, and nothing has really changed. Just because, and I say this as someone who has held political office, just because every political figure is for it and for raising taxes doesn't mean it's going to pass. Okay? You don't have to convince us about it. We're 3 votes. You've got to convince the citizens of Alachua County. And I don't think they trust the current county commission with any more money. I don't trust them with it. Okay? So I'm telling you right now, I agree that we've probably dug too deep a hole to fix it at this point. But we haven't really solved the problem. We've just come up with the annual tax. And one of the concerns I have is that if we keep having this annual tax that gets shot down and don't address the problem, you're never going to develop trust with the voters to pass what we might ultimately need one day. Some of the things that need to be done are we need to use existing revenue in a consistent, persistent basis on the roads. We also need to use any additional tax revenue that comes in with taxes going up or more property coming on the tax roll or economic development in that. We also need to roll back taxes and equivalent to show the people that we're actually trying to do something about it. But here's the bottom line. If you're for the tax, then you need to elect John Martin, because I will make sure that they don't do like the legislature did and move the lottery money, the education money over when the lottery comes in. So you need me to make sure they do exactly what they're saying they're going to do. And absolutely, if it doesn't pass, you need me even more than ever, because I'm the only one that is consistently, persistently telling you that we have to have a plan for doing it. Everyone can plan how you hit the lottery, but it takes real planning to deal with the money you actually have.
All right, thank you very much. Of course, one of the very controversial subjects right now has to do with a project called Plum Creek. And maybe we'll come back to the very middle. John, let you start off first with that, and then go back and forth with the panel. What, are you in favor of Plum Creek? John Martin.
I wanted to get something straight from the source. Excuse me, I have glasses on here. But I support Plum Creek's application for sure, the right to apply for it. I think it's the best combination of permanent conservation and economic development that the east side of the county, probably the county as a whole, has ever seen, okay? But I think it's also important to be consistent. And I don't know exactly what the final plan is going to look like. So I can't sit here and tell you that I will absolutely support every aspect of what Plum Creek is doing, because we don't know what the final plan is. There's been a lot touted that Plum Creek, that the county staff rejected it because it didn't comply with the comprehensive plan. Well, no joke, it didn't comply with the comprehensive plan because they're asking for an exception. An exception cannot, by nature, comply with the plan, because that's what an exception is. But I think it's important to know where people stand. Back on February 14th, a publication came out from Business, it's the heart of Florida, where Mr. Cornell said that he, well, it went away, but he was for Plum Creek because it was the best chance for his kids to stay and work and live in Alachua County. Then something funny happened. He decided to run for county commission, and he got a primary opponent. Well, then he immediately was 100% opposed to Plum Creek when he was 100% for it. Now Plum Creek is different because the primary is over, and he's trying to run back to the middle and says, okay, it'd be good for Hawthorne, and maybe now we can negotiate with him. So his deal goes back and forth. I think it is vital, no matter how you feel about any issue, to have someone that won't tell you just what you want to hear, that won't go to one group and say, I'm 100% for Plum Creek because it's for my kids, and over here, it's the worst thing since sliced bread and we got to save our plan, and now it's not too bad. We don't need Goldilocks in there, you know, it's this bad or that. We need straightforward someone. You know John Martin is a straight shooter and a straight talker.
Thank you very much. Well, Mr. Cornell, would you like to address the Plum Creek issue?
Sure, my opponent has a problem with facts, so let me clear that up. In 2012, Commissioner Hutchinson rolled off the Envision Task Force. I rolled on it in 2013, and I did say I want what's best for my kids. Hopefully we all want what's best for my kids. When I decided to run for office, I pulled myself off of the task force because I knew that ultimately I may have to vote on that if the voters elected me, and I didn't think it's right that a sitting commissioner sat on a task force with the application. Everyone knows where I stand on Plum Creek. I've got nothing against Plum Creek. I'm not for their existing plan that they've submitted. We've got to find some common ground, but if you take away all of the environmental questions, because maybe I'm not qualified, the big question I think you have to ask yourself is, who's going to pay for the infrastructure? Who's going to pay to develop 15 million square feet of commercial space, which is, just to give a scale, that's, Butler Plaza is about 1.5 million. So 15 times that level of infrastructure. Who's going to pay for 10,000 homes when it is located outside of the urban cluster? That's a question that needs to be answered. Staff has 137 pages worth of questions. Ultimately, the company and the county need to come together and find a common solution. Since we're talking about facts, and Mr. Martin was so kind to talk about his background, I think it's important that when you look at an individual and you look at someone who's going to raise taxes, check Mr. Martin's record in Hawthorne. He raised taxes 44%. In 2006. He raised the budget from 2004 to 2009, 62%. Facts are going to matter in this, and I would ask you to look at his record.
Thank you very much. Mr. Pinkston.
I just want y'all to know I'm not running against either one of these two. So, you know, I'm in a different race, and I'm not going to make anybody probably happy with my answer. But I do want to correct one thing. About the sales tax, it was indicated that perhaps we could take that money and move it. We can't. It has to go for the infrastructure, for road infrastructure. So I don't want anybody to leave thinking that that money can be taken and moved somewhere else. Plum Creek. Plum Creek is a little different from the two other candidates that are up here because I'm actually going to have a vote on this. And so I don't think that I've been through the process as far as going through a comprehensive plan. And the important thing is it needs to go through the process. I need to hear everything from everybody, go through the process that we have put forth, and hear what people, because I've walked into one of those meetings thinking I was going to do one thing and voted it completely opposite. So that isn't, and anybody who's done it before can understand that. So to say whether I'm for it or against it, I don't think it's appropriate. Do I have a problem with the fact that they want to do something with their land? No. I think that the ability to apply for something, I think is important. We're going through the workshops as we stand now, and hopefully when we're done with the workshops, what we will do is, I've proposed that we sit down with the Plum Creek people and our staff and talk about what we have concerns about, because the application that's before us now is, I don't believe, will be the ultimate application that we will end up voting on. So it's a process. It has its pluses. I will tell you that I am concerned about the fact that they want to develop in a floodplain, but that's something that we can have discussions to see whether or not it's something that can be worked out. The economic opportunities that can happen are quite exciting as far as what it can do for the eastern portion of the county. So there are a number of things that we have to talk about, but we have to go through the process, and hopefully y'all aren't too disappointed with that answer. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Obviously, we have a discussion here that to some extent county commissioners have some input in because they influence state legislatures who also have possibly some influence, and that is the governance of the Gainesville Regional Utility. Should it be local, or should it be somehow taken out of the hands of local people, because we have legislators who have been approached to do that? What is your position on that, Mr. Cornell?
So I believe in keeping GRU in the hands of the people. Every city election, they elect the board of directors. And I don't believe moving the power from the people to some appointed board that is appointed by Tallahassee is the right approach. In fact, I think having an independent board could result in the exact opposite of what we're trying to accomplish by potentially doing that, which is lower energy rates and better governance. So that being said, there's been some discussion about having a county representative sit on the GRU board. I would obviously be in favor of that as long as it was an elected official. But I believe that GRU should be kept in the hands of the people.
Thank you, John Martin.
Well, first, just let me say something really quick. The 64% that Mr. Cornell talked about Hawthorne's budget going up, we went from having no sewer system to having a sewer system. The budget went up. I'm sure that Archer would like to have that same problem, and High Springs would probably like to have a similar problem in finishing theirs. But let me just tell you, first of all, yes, I support an independent board over GRU. Let me just give you the best example I can give you. Just this past Wednesday morning at a university breakfast that happens every month, they have a different keynote speaker. This month that happened to be Bernie Matcham, President of the University of Florida. He was asked by a former mayor of Gainesville, who was basically Pageen Hanrahan's mentor, about why did the University of Florida not buy power from GRU? He said, and I quote, that if I had, it would have cost me $16 million more last year than this year. $16 million, and I don't have $16 million. That pretty much sums up the decision-making process of GRU, led by the city of Gainesville, and the biomass plant. It affects all of us, and what really frustrated me was when I saw county commissioners saying it wasn't their business. When Mr. Cornell had a chance on the task force for the Chamber of Commerce, he's the only one that voted against it. It is our business because guess what? About 54% of the schools in Alachua County pay a GRU bill, and that means it's 33% higher for a school paying a GRU bill than one paying a Clay Electric bill. It affects everybody. It affects you here in Archer, and every small city is affected by this. Gainesville and GRU is the economic engine of this whole region of the state. And to have the highest utility rates in the state, how is that going to play out for the rest of us? It is our business. 30% of the people GRU customers aren't even represented by the city of Gainesville. So to say it's not our business is just not right.
Thank you very much. Lee Pickerson, please.
Well, the city is currently debating what the future of GRU's governance is, and we'll see how that plays out. I know at the Regional Utility Committee that the county's representative, a non-voting county member, that they discussed it, and my input at that meeting was that when they have the negotiations, the county needs to be involved because, I have Central Florida Co-op. We have a farm, the old Marchant property, about 7 miles down the street, and 30% of GRU's customers are from the unincorporated area, and they have absolutely no say-so whatsoever on the decisions that are made as far as the energy. And I think that that's a key component because, quite frankly, it's my belief, and I've been bringing this up ever since I've been on the commission, is that essentially what's happening is some of that money is there is a shift of revenues that go from GRU to the regular general fund and for the city commission. That being the case, some of that money is being used for services inside the city for the citizens of the city of Gainesville that the county is paying, the county citizens are paying for. And quite frankly, I think that there's no reason why the unincorporated people should be subsidizing the city of Gainesville because what it does is artificially keeps their millage rate down. So I would hope that as they go forward, there is a different governance that at least at a minimum includes the county commission with at least one member that's a voting member, because we are a third. Hopefully, whatever it is, it will be up to a third of the representatives from the county, because it definitely has an impact on the county citizens. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. This will probably be the last series of questions, and that will be, by the time you answer, it will be the 8:20 time. That will have been a half an hour. So one of the questions we would like to ask you is, has to do with, seems always there is a tension between law enforcement and the county commission when it comes to budget time. Let's start with Ms. Cornell on that. What is your thoughts on the relationship with the county commission and the Alachua County Sheriff's budget.
Public safety is a core service. We've got to fund our core service, and we need to have a good working relationship with our sheriff. Our sheriff has been a good steward of the money. You know, she had a surplus, and so I would support, which I think the commission did this time, trying to fill holes of the sheriff's budget. Now, that being said, I think the sheriff would also agree that to incarcerate individuals for victimless crimes for periods of time, weeks, months at a time, is not good for the public trust. It's not good for paying for people in jail, and it's certainly not good for the individual. So we need to have a good working relationship with the sheriff and make sure that we as a county commission are identifying the needs in our community to make sure that we're not arresting folks for victimless crimes and putting them away because they're not good, productive citizens. That being said, the sheriff is a core service, and we need to fund our core services.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Pinkerson, what is your thoughts? You actually had this issue.
I think that I have a pretty good relationship with the sheriff. I've supported her in the past. I supported Sheriff Ulrich when he was the sheriff. I think that, as Ken said, that it is a core service. I think I think our relationship with Sheriff Darnell has probably improved since the last sheriff, although I think that there have been some issues of late. I think that quite frankly, the sheriff does not, they have discretion as far as how they interpret whatever happens at a certain place, you know, when they arrive at the scene, and they have to decide whether or not they can issue a citation or assess the situation or whether they take them to jail. And I think that if there's any place, and quite frankly, the county commission doesn't really have a large say-so in that. That is something that probably should be discussed with the sheriff. The sheriff is a independently elected constitutional officer. We allocate money for the sheriff, but we can't tell the sheriff how to do their job. And another component is the sheriff doesn't write the laws. They enforce the law. So sometimes they don't have discretion about what they can do, and as far as implementation of the laws. I think that the county commission has worked very hard to try to stem some of the tide from people that, unfortunately, the mental health situation for those people that are afflicted with mental illness, sometimes they're warehoused in our jails. And I think that the county has gone out of its way through some grants to help stem the tide that the people get the treatment that they need. Back to the sheriff, we have tried to work with the sheriff as far as addressing some of her needs, but we do not control her budget. We just allocate money, and that's where we need to concentrate on.
Thank you very much. John Martin, please.
Well, I have a very good working relationship with the current sheriff and have for many years. We had some issues out in Hawthorne. It had nothing to do with the sheriff nor the service that we were getting from the sheriff. It actually did have to do with the county commission. And you, as legislators in your community, know some of the things I'm talking about. But let me just give you an example where experience actually counts, because one of the reasons why I'm running for county commissioner is because I believe it is way past time that we have a true county-wide county commission. I think, to Mr. Pinkerson's credit, he tries to do that the best he can, but it stops pretty quickly after that. Because if you look, for instance, at the MSTU issue, and it's complicated, some people might not understand it, but I know you as a cities do. Think about this. They tell us that the people that pay MSTU is because if we have to pay it for patrol services. And no other cities, if a city has its own police department, like the city of Gainesville, they don't have to pay to MSTU for patrol services. But this was about 10 years ago when I was looking into it very heavily. The city of Gainesville, in a 6-month period, the county issued 964 traffic citations or citations inside the city limits of Gainesville in a 6-month period. You don't issue traffic citations when you're serving warrants. You do it when you're patrolling. So it's the county, and I'm not criticizing them, it's the sheriff's job, but they were patrolling patrolling inside the city limits of Gainesville, and they don't pay an MSTU. But if you're in Archer or you're in Hawthorne, and to get that same level of patrol, the county commission tells you, you got to pay an MSTU. We in Hawthorne offered to pay the county commission the equivalent of the MSTU every single year without entering into it. Whatever their figures tell us, we would pay it. They said no, because it wasn't about law enforcement, it was about control. We need a true county-wide county commissioner that understands your issues, and you know who that is. It's John Martin, and I need your help if we're going to win, because the interior of Gainesville is probably not going to vote for me. It's going to take the outlying areas to turn this thing around, but if you want a voice there, then you need to vote for John Martin.
Thank you very much. That completes our forum at